Well, isn't it about time we talk about Shiyana, right? So Shiyana is one of the other favorite heroes I like to play, right? Her and Melody. Again, goofy decks is what I enjoy, but with the meta sort of slowing down, right? With X Blitz Hero leaving, Reiner, Briar, and then also, the bans, I thought she might actually stand a decent chance, right? Despite LSS's, we're not going to touch Shapeshifter for a while. They kind of do, right? Every spec card we get is furthering Shiyana's game. And although we don't have an adult, right, because I do think she'd do a lot better in Classic Constructed, I do think we're getting to the point where she has some favorable cards, right? Especially cards that don't really shine in their own specific hero, but are quite a nice addition to her toolkit. So, yeah, let's talk about China. Now, it wouldn't be me if I didn't show off, something complex, something unrealistic, but insane nonetheless. So why don't we see, starting off, how many cards we can string along and how much damage we could do as China. So a little bit of setup is going into this. One, we have two Techload cores. Graveyard's easier, right? So the opening hand was basically Sigil of Brilliance, Sigil of Brilliance. Again, fantastic way to get Seismic Surge in a sense, right? Because she plays very Guardian-esque, but one extra card is a little bit better than Seismic Surge generation, in my opinion. So yeah, you can throw out a Sigil, and then you'll start the next turn with one extra card in hand, and then Spark of Genius would lead the charge to find our two Techlo cores, so we start with 4 resources. So, opening hand is 6 cards, right? Nothing in the arsenal, so if we were disrupted in any way, it's fine. We would maintain our card advantage, and then we can basically try and string things together. So we have Arc Lightning, which is fantastic. This is very, very good, right? Giving go again to some of the cards that she has access to compared to that of Lightning seems a lot more impactful, so I'm glad this is a specialization. But to start off, we'll do it nice and easy, just double Force of Nature. We'll gain the buff. The buff we want from this is there, I guess that's as far as I can zoom in, is the whole if a attack hits has greater than its base, draw a card. So since we have 2 active, we'll draw 2 cards whenever we have an attack that does greater than its base damage, which, as you can see with Up the Ante, we will be able to make Drink 'em Under the Table quite the devastating opening card, right? So straight away, Arc Lightning, we'll give it a go again. Plus, we'll also have the ping effects. Then we can do Drink 'em Under the Table, and we will definitely wager. And then, if they block, they react, right? Then we up the ante, and we can pitch for that 3 and grab all 4 modes, which will up it to 12 damage and generate us a bunch of stuff. So, if it hits, we draw 2 cards. We also destroy our Vest of the First Fist, which, coincidentally, right, not really so, stack the deck, allows us to then double play Whirling Mist Blossom, another good little joining card for someone like Shiyana, where you can throw out this big attack first, and then follow it up with this smaller but very impactful draw engine, right? So draw 2 cards if this is the second or higher chain link in a row to hit, right? So usually, if you have something big, it's probably going to hit. And then Whirling Mist Blossom, if you've also debilitated their hand, is also more likely to hit. So we'll throw out both of them since we had the resources from the vest. And there we go, we're back to a sizable hand. And Rouse of the Ancients. Again, big card with go again. Ties in with Arc Lightning, ties in with Force of Nature, because it does have that 0 base and it's buffing itself. So we will definitely play that. And then we'll reveal our 2 cards. It goes to 7, but more importantly, we keep the draw going. And yeah, we're actually gonna probably cycle through the entirety of the deck as Shiyana, which is pretty insane to say, right? Because I didn't think this would be where we would. Oh god, tongue-tied. I didn't think this is where Shiyana would be at this point, right? Morphing into, again, she's kind of just a better Guardian than whatever Betsy's trying to do, right? Because I think the gold package and everything does more in Shiyana than it does in Betsy. Wagering and taking Betsy's cards, both of the first specs are good for Shiyana in conjunction with the other cards that she has access to. But from here, we can now Spring Tiding. 0 cost, it is Benji's spec, which is also more draw, and will draw per card that has 2 or less base attack. So Spring Tiding itself, we have the 2 Rouse the Ancients, we have the Whirling Mist Blossom. So we are drawing fairly decently off those 2. And there we go, right? Basically almost through the entirety of the deck. So we will end up breaking the chain here, because we want to make sure we can buff our cards. That's why we have the Goliath Gauntlet, and also another set of Drink 'em Under the Table, and Up the Ante, which at this point, I'd assume your opponent's hand is definitely empty. But we can go Arc Lightning, we can then do Drink 'em Under the Table, and we will pitch. And from there, wager, and of course, Up the Ante, push it over to a 12, and we'll pitch 3. And we have definitely KO'd our opponent by now, but, we're not quite done. So, we do have Germinates, and we do have resources. So, essentially, if we can pour enough into Germinate, we can make Arknight Ascendancy free. So we do want Germinate, but we want it to be exact so that we can get through the remainder of our cards. So it's not 12, we want 10. We want 5 tokens plus the one that it generates, because it's the whole generates or repeat this process X more times. So it definitely does one, and then depending on how much you've spent, it does extra, right? So a 0 for 1 Runechant token, 1 life. It's also kind of good in a pinch, but we will pitch our 10, which will only be 3 bubbles this time, which, yes, that makes more sense because we have the gold to pop too. So we can create our 6 Runechant tokens, which will make Arknight Ascendancy for free. And then we do Goliath Gauntlet. And then after the Gauntlet, lead the charge. That'll give Arknight Ascendancy an action point, meaning that we can string another one after it. So we'll draw 2 more cards. And then we'll have the next Arknight Ascendancy. And yes, perfect, right? 2 cards, 2 gold pops. 1 and 2. And we have some resources spared, but none of that's really necessary, right? You have 1 more extra card, but again, this was a 40 card deck to start off. So here we go lead the charge, do Arknight Ascendancy again. It's for free, it hits, we get the action points, meaning we do lead the charge, and then top it off with just some extra arcane damage with a 41 Blazing Aether, perfect, into a 82. So we did a grand total of, how much is that? 222 damage. Yeah, that's definitely sizable Shiyana. That's worthy of our normal combo showcases, right? And all in one turn too. Pretty nutty. Again, that we're getting to the point where you do technically have strings of cards if you do high roll. And, you know, some of it's interchangeable, right? The stages at which we use certain cards is definitely interchangeable. So it's something to keep in mind as we continue to reach that critical mass. So even, again, with the removal of Art of War Tome and all the other draw engines, again, once you get the momentum going, draw in Fab is definitely at the point of just being kind of win more, right? Which is good and bad. But anyway, why don't we move over to actually Shiyana and what she has access to nowadays. So there are definitely some much better cards than what we showed off there. Again, I just wanted to show off a nice string of things, but there are some nice tech pieces. So, obviously, Arc Lightning really stands out for me, right? Again, the fact that you get the arcane pings, which will help reduce your opponent's hand, help get some of those effects through that you want on your hits, but then also give something big go again is fantastic. Because if you compare it to, you know, other cards that do allow that, for instance, like Captain's Call, we have 2 or less, which obviously doesn't hit anything Guardian or anything Brutes, or most Brute things, right? 1 or less, so that doesn't quite work. Lead the Charge is basically the only one, right? And this is basically Lead the Charge plus then the extra effect, right? Of doing that ping damage, which is really nice. So, yeah, Arc Lightning into something big, right? A 3 or a 4 into then something smaller, and this is where the generics will have to sort of flesh it out a little bit more. But, you know, if we get another ninja set, if we get, well, maybe an assassin set, it all depends. You know, if they target the wider heroes, then Shiyana, I think, will find the pieces that she needs to really flesh out her toolkit. But there is definitely, you know, good cards in the generic slots. There's Weakest Link, which is fantastic. Again, you know, a 3 or 4 into a 2. And, you know, with the discard and draw effects, beautiful. I mean, that's one of the reasons I really like Drink 'em Under the Table. The fact that if you get that winning effect, right, you draw a card, they discard a card, and that's just perfect. So, yeah, having reactions or ways to buff it is definitely a nice utility. So, equipment-wise, I'm definitely taking high roll. The reason I like the Aegis and the Crown is so that we can take our Visit Goldmane Estate, and this is straight away a create 1 gold, create 3 might, right? I think that's fairly decent. Again, it is, to me, Shiyana is very much the Guardian mindset. But instead of going, you know, Seismic Surge into big turn, Seismic Surge into big turn, you know, Crush Effect into, you know, recouping and then big turn and that sort of mentality, your setup is a little bit different because you're trying to string together these other unique circumstances, be it, you know, Runechant tokens through Germinate or Sonata Phantasmia, right? Or, again, Mites through Physical May State or any of the wager mechanics. So it does open up the field a little bit, and I think I like her more than what they're currently doing with Guardian, because Guardian is kind of the easy class of Fab in terms of the game plan and, you know, the play patterns and lines. So yeah, it's nice to have this type of flexibility. But why don't we go through what, you know, has recently added? So Citadel of Brilliance, again, compare it to creating Seismic Surge token. So it's instant, you can play it on the end of your opponent's turn, right? You're recouping 1 card. Doesn't quite have the same impact, but you're turning a yellow potentially into something else. That's still somewhat nice. I like it though, treating it like a Seismic Surge token. You play it at the end of your turn, you recoup your draw. If it stays on board, you then get that bonus, and that bonus, again, might be better than Seismic Surge. It most likely will, right, compared to one Seismic Surge token. Then you have the old goodies of Spark of Genius, and the God, what is it called? Do I not have it in here? There we go. The Klloo Claw. There we are. Right, so to generate 2 resource, again, smooth out Shiyana's curve. Now, I also like them because they're minuses to the deck, which allows stringing some other stuff together a little bit better, right? And then you have some of the tempo cards from, like, Ninja, through Spring Tidings and the Whirling Mist Blossom, in conjunction with, like, Rouse the Ancients, and keeping those big cards to pitch away, right? And then go into that as your endgame could have some really high-value tempo turns where you shift from wide to big. And yeah, it's all around, it seems like a very interesting and fun playstyle, right? And you have a very varied toolkit for different matchups, and even some of the life gain effects, right? Even though you don't get the the arcane pings that the heartbeat of the Candlehold was made for, still a 3-block on a blue, and you can use it to regain 3 life, right? That's fairly decent. I do like Germinate a bit more. Again, 0 for 1/1, or depending how much you pump it, that can then lead into your bigger turns. I think with the Rune Chance additions, stuff like Arcanine Ascendancy is definitely more playable. If you had, a way to guarantee your opponent, then you could take certain matchups and toolkits. But, where do I even have it here? The other 2 Runeblade cards that we have, Arcanine Ascendancy, I think is one, which allows you to trade one card for the other. This is a lot better because it's not specific to using a Runeblade card to find a Runeblade card, right? It's discard a non-attack action card to find a Runeblade card. So you could use this to swap out one attack to something else, in this case being Arcanine Ascendancy, or you could go after Germinate, which is a Runeblade card. That's Wizard. Or you could go for the Sonata Phantasmia. So you could have somewhat okay Arcane Backbone to then also utilize the Wizard cards, right? Kano's Ping, which should be somewhere here. I had this all nicely set out, right? Good attacks, or just what I think is really the core of Shiyana, which is mainly the 4s and 3s that hit hard and have good effects, right? Combined with some of the utility cards, like Arc Lightning now and Force of Nature. I still love the draw off of Force of Nature. It does have a little synergy with Germinate, right? Being able to reveal that as your Earth card. So you could use it to then pump it itself, or rather pump the next card you play with it. And again, it's fetchable through Arcanine Ascendancy. I don't think it's that valuable. Still blue for 3, which is kind of good. But, late game, it'll be useless. You really want to find it early on to ensure that you can find the correct attacks or the correct non-attack cards. Is it attack for... Is it reversed? It is. So you discard an attack action card to find a non-attack action card, and you find a attack action card by discarding a non-attack action card. So that is definitely useful, right? You could also, take the Arcanine Shard. And then there was the discount one. I think is it another Sonata? No. Reduce? Is that the phrasing used? No. Runeblade should work, though. Yeah, there we go. Beyond the Vast. Bequest the Vast beyond. So the next Runeblade attack action card, you get minus. Again, in mirror matches where you're against a Runeblade, you could definitely have a nice sideboard to try and compete with them a bit better. Obviously, a little bit harder now, since, for Blitz, most of them are out, despite the 2 newcomers. But then, filler cards like Tenacity, of course, Enlightened Strike, Command and Conquer, even the new armor set, right? Rather than taking high-rolling stuff, you just take Tankiness, Arcanite Skullcap, and Fortress, great in conjunction, right? That's what it's designed for. But yeah, Fairytale Spring Tunic probably smooths over the curve in the best way, right? And overall, the fact that you have access to so many specialization cards, they're slightly above the normal Majestic power level. Even like the defense reactions are good. Shakedown with a couple more D-reacts if you want to take pummels or Razor Reflex, right? But yeah, I think her backbone is developing very nicely, right? It is just, to me, Pseudo Guardian with alternatives rather than just Seismic Surge. It's either draw cards, either set up resources, or at this point, I do think Rune Chant tokens are a decent thing to also work towards, right? Again, double down on the arcane damage, right? The colors do mess you up sometimes, because if, for instance, Kano's spec was not red, you still get the 3 block out of it, but then if you draw it, you kind of have to pivot to doing arcane damage so that you can utilize it, or you can throw it out block. It's flexible enough, I take it back. It's flexible enough to actually utilize it, right? If obviously stuff like this wasn't just wizard card, it was just more interwoven, interconnected with the pools, then of course Shiyana would flourish. But yeah, even without them directly supporting Shapeshifter, right, you still have access to decent equipment, and you definitely have a decent pool of cards to pull from now. So yeah, how are you gonna run Shiyana? Let me know. Anyway, hope you enjoyed. See ya.